Why do you think so many of our people fear their own original religions and culture, whether that be Obeah, Santeria, Voodoo, Hoodoo, etc.? Most of our people try our best to distance ourselves from these ancient beliefs many decades after chattel slavery that has to do with, I guess, pre-colonial Africa or wherever. Why is that? Why do we distance ourselves from these ancient cultures?
Well, they were taught that these religions were of the devil. They were taught that they were evil. And it's going to take some time to convince them that this is their religion. These are their gods. You know, this is what we were before the white man. And I think in time they will come to see that these religions are not of the devil.
The Obeah Woman by Anastasia A Armourer. Chapter 13. The news of the murdered FBI agent spread throughout the island. The witnesses told police about the black man with the red hair they saw commit the murder. Leo knew immediately that it was Red Claw. As he sat at his desk listening to the news, his phone rang. Hello? Hello, Leo. This is Regent Astor. Yes, sir. How may I help you? Help me? I want you to help yourself. You have got quite a mess on your hands, young man, and I am expecting you to clean it up immediately. Now, this thing has gone too far already, so put an end to it, and I mean like yesterday. The regent hung up the phone. Paul, get in here. Leo shouted. Immediately, a tall white man about the age of 40 ran into the room. Yes, sir. Red Claw is running a rampage on this island and it is up to me to stop him. He has killed a lot of people, including an American FBI man. Now that is the last straw. Do we want to take him alive, sir? No. I want him dead. You have 2 days to put together a team, and we will hunt him down until he is dead. Yes, sir. I will get right on it, sir. Paul left the room, leaving Leo to plan his strategy. Dora heard the news about Red Claw, and she was determined to find him and heal him from this terrible curse. She must find a place to hide him after he is cleansed. Dora thought long and hard, and then she remembered the room in the Temple of the Lower Council. Dora has the master key that can open any lock. Dora drove her truck to the grocery store and stocked up on provisions. She then drove to the temple, and took all the food down to the secret room. Dora knew that people only came to the temple for ceremonies, and Red Claw will not be there long. Dora returned home and began her divination to find Red Claw. Leo Van Hart led his team of red dragons into the Nariver jungle. They knew that Red Claw occupied several caves in the area. These men were more than Obeah men. They make use of top-of-the-line communication and ammunition devices. The men have worked together for decades with Leo Van Hart as their leader. First, there is the Scanner, a magician of high degree with strong psychic abilities. Second, the Arachnids, they are the web weavers who form barriers. Third, the Healer. Fourth, the Eliminator, he uses fire in all forms. Fifth, the Ammunition Expert. And sixth, the Equippers, who are in charge of all technical equipment. These men are the best in their field, and they have never failed in an assignment. I want this entire forest sealed off. Put up a web dome immediately. Leo ordered the Arachnids to go to work. The 2 men immediately transformed themselves into enormous spiders and began spinning a dome over the entire area. The material looks like silk, but it is not. It is extremely sensitive to light and dissolve with the first rays of the sun. Scanner. Talk to me. Where is he hiding? I am getting a very strong vibration from a cave up there, in that northwestern region of the forest. Brian, I want everyone fully equipped. 100%. We won't be able to move back and forth to the vans once we enter the jungle. Leo was loading up his own equipment as he gave orders. Jerry, connect me with the council. He got into the van as Jerry carried out his orders on the computer. Soon the symbol for the lower council appeared on the screen. Sir, I wanted you to know that we are in place, and about to enter the jungle. Good work, Leo. Now, I want you to be very careful with this. You have never had contact with a Kanka vampire before, and please do not underestimate your wife's feelings for this man. Don't worry, sir, I don't think that she will be a problem. Remember, Leo, the Chancellor is watching this one. So, clean it up quickly and go home. Yes, sir. It will be over in a few hours. That would be good. See you then. With those words, the Regent was gone and Leo exited the van. Okay, men. Let's do it. Leo and his men began their flight into the Nariver jungle. The tropical jungle is dark and densely overgrown with tall trees, long vines, and thick underbrush. The men levitated themselves off of the ground, and moved towards the northwestern corner of the jungle. Some flying higher than others. The men lit their way with tiny jewels that floated like a cloud of fireflies above them. Suddenly, Leo yelled at one of his men who were having some problem with the vines. Damn it, Paul. You're slowing us down. You damn scanners think that all you need are psychic abilities. If you worked harder to increase your degree level, you could fly higher. Paul tried hard to avoid the thick underbrush and long vines, but the jungle was so thick, it was most difficult. They then stopped at the place Paul had indicated. Leo gave the signal to descend. As their feet hit the ground, they began their search for clues. The cloud of jewel lights floated down and lit their way among the trees. What degree is Red Claw? Asked Joe the healer. Well, he started out at 9 degrees. Then, with the help of drugs and a lot of brain food, I am told he is now at 16 degrees. 16. That is higher than all of us, except you? Joe was astounded. That's right, so tighten up your ass, and let's go get him, before he adds another degree or two. The men were concerned, but they had a lot of faith in Leo Van Hart. They truly believed that he could handle anything. They moved cautiously through the jungle, following the direction of the scanner. When suddenly, they came upon the dead bodies of 4 men, 2 women, and a little girl about 10 years old. Each of the bodies was tied to the base of a large tree. Some of them were covered with red ants, others were being eaten by blue crabs which lived in abundance in that area of the jungle, and one was being devoured by a horde of beetles, which covered the entire carcass. The little girl was the one most recently killed, and was the most recognizable of the group. Van Hart and his men were disgusted by the sight. Raphael, burn them. Leo told the Eliminator, who by an up and down motion of his hands burned each of the bodies where they were on the tree without burning the trees themselves. Paul. Where the hell is Red Claw? Leo was upset and wanted to find Red Claw to finally put a stop to this madness. Paul used all of his mind power to try to find him. There is a cave not far from here. I sense his presence there. Paul said with confidence. The men left the carcasses smoldering at the base of the trees and moved in the direction that Paul had indicated. The large spiders had completed their job and one descended the interior of the dome in the east, the other in the west. The man in the east is Woody, a tall thin wizard with long gray hair. He reverted to his human shape as he touched the ground. He took a small crystal from out of his pouch, and levitated it up into the air. The stone immediately lit up and hovered about 4 feet over his head, lighting his way. He moved westwards, trying to get a feel for where the others were. He stopped at a large tree to get his bearings, then suddenly, a small hole opened in the tree, and 2 long fangs shot out of the head of the vampire. The vampire then lounged forward and struck him at the back of his neck. It was Red Claw. He had transformed himself into a tree. He grabbed Woody as he sucked out his blood, and left him where he fell. Red Claw quickly moved to the west where the others were approaching his cave. The cave itself was large and well hidden, but with the help of Paul, the scanner, they found it. The men entered very cautiously and quietly. As the crystals lit up the cave, the men were startled by the horrified screeching of two young women clinging to each other in the darkness of the cave. Joe, the healer, moved over to them. "It's all right, don't be afraid. We are not going to hurt you." The women were relieved and wept softly, still holding on to each other. Joe moved his hands over the two women to calm them down, examining them at the same time. The other men examined the cave. "Damn it, Paul, I thought you said he was here." Leo was angry. Again Paul said nothing. He simply turned around in the cave looking a bit baffled. Joe moved over to Leo and pulled him to the side. "My God, sir. These women are pregnant with vampire babies." The two men looked at each other in disbelief. "You're kidding me." Leo looked at the two women huddled together. As he walked over to them, the other men closed in behind him. "So, he's using these women to breed more of his kind." Leo seemed mesmerized by this thought. "What are we going to do? We can't leave them here." Joe looked at the women with great sympathy. Then, without warning, Leo Van Hart shot out two bolts of lightning from out of his outstretched hands, hitting the two women and killing them instantly. Joe was stunned. He could not believe what Leo had done. "Ralph, burn them." Leo gave the order without flinching. "Paul, I want to know where this creep is, and I want to know it now." He screamed at Paul, who was trying desperately to locate Red Claw. "My God. Woody is dead." "What?" the men all asked, not believing him. "He is. Red Claw killed him on the east side." Paul looked at Leo with an apology in his eyes. At that moment, Clifton, the other arachnid, walked into the cave. "Let's go." They all followed Leo's order, and floated over to the east side where Woody's body lay on the ground. Leo and Joe knelt beside Woody's body. They were shaken by his death, as were all the others, because Leo didn't expect to lose any of his men on this mission. The death of Woody Lane brought with it a new and very different reality. Clifton too was hard hit. Woody was his partner and friend for many years. They had developed their arachnid skills together. Clifton wrapped him up and took him back to the van. Leo walked over to Paul, grabbing him by the scruff of the neck and slamming him up against a tree. "This is your fault, you incompetent idiot. I want you to focus yourself right now, and tell me where that creep is." Yes, sir." "Ah, let me see. Oh my, he's at the vans." Leo dropped Paul, as Clifton picked up Woody, which he had wrapped inside and placed over his shoulder. They all flew off towards the vans. James, the equipment expert, had stayed behind at the van. He had just stepped out of the main vehicle to have a smoke. He stood by a rock looking up at the silky white dome the arachnids had made with wonder. It never ceases to amaze him, no matter how many times he has seen it. Just how do they do it? Suddenly, a hole opened up in the rock, and the vampire's fangs struck him at the back of the head. In a moment, Red Claw had sucked out his blood and dropped his body to the ground. Leo and his men arrived moments later only to discover James' dead body. "My God. What kind of a demon is this?" asked Joe as he knelt down and examined James' body. "A demon of the worst kind, Joe." Leo was disgusted. He came to this forest with 8 men to do a job that he thought would take him a few hours, with no personal losses, and in less than an hour, he had lost 2 of his men. "Okay, men, it's time for us to regroup here." The men gathered around Leo. "Now it's clear that this demon is worse than I thought. He is cunning and ruthless, and we must destroy him. We must not allow him to kill anyone else, so we must move in pairs at all times." We must not be alone at any time. Stay alert and observe everything around you. Paul. Where is he now? I sense he is close, but he is so well shielded that I cannot pinpoint his exact location. When you say, close, how close is close? Ah, within 100 yards. Okay, let's move in a circle of a 100 yards radius. Examine every tree, rock, and shrub in the area. The men proceeded as ordered, moving out very cautiously. They examined every tree and shrub, rock and vine, with no success. Leo looked at Paul with anger. He's here. I swear it. Paul said quickly. Then where is he? Leo's frustration was at its peak. Paul tried hard, but he could not locate Red Claw. Look, there's a river near here. I would like to get some fresh water. Looks like it's going to be a very long night. Would anyone like to come with me? Joe asked as he headed in the direction of the river. I'll go with you, Paul said quickly, wanting to get away from Leo for a few minutes. Leo did not stop him, he simply waved his hand of approval in disgust. The two men walked over to the river. Joe took his canteen and walked down to the edge of the water, while Paul sent up a few more light crystals. Suddenly, Red Claw rose up from out of the river waters, and grabbed Joe, pulling him into the water, then disappeared. Paul screamed so loudly, the others flew immediately to his side, but Joe was gone. Where is Joe? Where the hell is he? Leo was shaking Paul, who was so upset he could not speak. He finally was able to say, Red Claw. Red Claw came up out of the river and just took him. They all ran to the river, but there was no sign of Joe anywhere. Where did he take him? Damn it, Paul. Where did he take Joe? Leo was screaming at him. I don't know, I can't think. Paul was in tears as his body slumped to the ground. Raphael, I want you and Clifton to take 6 dark crystals, and light up the dome. Jim, you know that the crystal may damage the dome? Yes, I know, but we have no choice. We must be able to move quickly without worrying about slamming into a tree. Just anchor them as far away from the dome's surface as possible. The two men took the crystals high above the forest. They decided to string the crystals from east to west, starting in the middle of the dome, and moving out in opposite directions. By this time Dora had driven her truck deep into the Nariver forest. She knew that Red Claw occupied many caves there, and that the red dragons would go there to find him. Dora had to get to him as quickly as possible, and use the jewels to transform him back to normal. She could see the huge dome in front of her, and thought that she may be too late. Dora parked her truck about 100 yards away from the dome. She then climbed into the back of the truck to change her clothes, and put all that she would need in her backpack. She wore a pair of black jeans and black leather boots, a black shirt, and wrapped up her long hair in a black head wrap. She then placed her backpack on her back and flew off to the dome. She didn't know how to enter the dome structure. She pounded it with her fist to test it. The material was extremely hard, and even Dora's lightning bolts could not penetrate it. Suddenly, she thought of the jewels, the Eye of Ra. She removed the chain from her neck and held the jewel in her hand. It rose up in front of her. She held her hands up with her palms facing the jewel and said the words, Brahma out Ra. Suddenly, a beam of light shot out of the crystals and hit the dome. The beam burned a huge hole in the dome structure and Dora flew in. On the inside, the dome was well lit, and Dora tried to get a sense of where Red Claw was. Suddenly, she looked up, and there, falling out of the sky, heading straight for her was an enormous spider. Dora shot out a huge bolt of lightning from her hands and struck him in the middle of his body. The blow sent the spider sprawling into the trees. Dora used her jewel again, Brahma out Ra. Again, the beam of light came out and struck the spider, burning it to cinders. Clifton was dead. Dora began her search for Red Claw. She could sense that he was still free. The red dragons could not find him. Paul had calmed down considerably, and was now focusing his mind on locating Red Claw, when Raphael returned to the group. "Where is Clifton?" asked Leo. "He went off to the east. I'm sure he will be here soon. I told you people to stay together. Why can't you obey orders, Raphael?" "He's dead." Paul's voice was cold and hard, as he sat crossed-legged on the ground close to the van. All the men gathered around him. "He was killed by a woman of great power, who just entered the dome." "Dora," Leo said softly. "Damn." Leo was so angry that he slammed his fist in the side of the van. Dora stopped her search, as she remembered that she and Red Claw had a way to signal each other with their minds. Whenever she needed him, she would send out a psychic signal to him and he would come to her. She centered herself and sent the words in her mind, from near or far, on land or sea. "Oh lover, I need you, please come to me." In an instant, Red Claw stood in front of her. Both their eyes filled with tears as they embraced each other. "I have a way to cure you of this," she said to him, touching his face gently. "How?" he asked in such a hopeless way that it almost broke her heart. "With this." She opened her hand and showed him the Eye of Ra. He gasped in disbelief and placed his hands around hers, holding the jewel. The tears rolled down his cheeks, as he embraced her gratefully. "We must go before the red dragons find us," Dora said as she took him by the arm and flew off to the hole she had made in the dome. They both entered Dora's truck and headed for the temple. Dora knew of a special room in the basement of the temple directly beneath the throne, where she could hide Red Claw from the red dragons. No one else knew about this place. Not even the clan mother. Dora discovered it by accident one day while she was cleaning the temple. Dora placed her hand on the door of the sacred chamber, and it opened for her. They entered the chamber, and the door closed behind them. In the room was a bed, a table, chairs, and shelves with food. There was also a small bathroom, and a small kitchen. "I never knew this room was here," said Red Claw, sitting on the bed and looking around him. "How did this happen to you, my love?" Dora asked, kneeling in front of him as he got on the bed. Red Claw closed his eyes as the tears fell down his cheeks. He pulled himself together and told Dora exactly what had happened. "6 years ago, your husband came to me and told me that he was ordered by the chancellors of the lower council to choose someone he thought was worthy for a great experiment. They wanted to use a drug they developed that would increase the power of the mind. Apparently, the chancellors had been working on this drug for many decades, and had finally come up with a workable sample. You see, many of the regents were tired of wasting 12 years for the oracle to bestow its power upon them, so they developed this drug that would have the same effect. Leo, my clan father, assured me that this drug was well tested, and was quite safe. I believed him, I trusted him. I agreed to have the drug administered to my body in a series of treatments." Red Claw stood to his feet and walked over to the fountain. He dipped his hands into the water and washed his face. Dora handed him a towel and he held it to his face. He felt so ashamed of all the horrible things he had done. He could hardly stand it. He wept bitterly into the towel. Dora embraced him and led him back to the bed, and she lay down, removed the towel from his face, and kissed her cheek gently. He continued his story, as he held her hands on his chest. "The first 3 years were fantastic. My brain power went from 9 degrees to 12 degrees. It was unbelievable. Things I did not even think I would ever be able to do, I was doing with ease. Then, Leo ordered the dosage doubled, and that's when I took my first step into hell. My brain felt as though it were on fire. For an entire year, I suffered with terrible headaches. I tried desperately to control them. Then the pain in my chest started, and I was needing more and more of the drug to stop them. I had become addicted. 6 months ago, I felt something moving in my chest. Leo told me it was nothing, and that in time, like all my other symptoms, it would go away. I couldn't get enough of the drug to stop the pain. Then, Leo came to me and told me that the chancellors had ended the program. There were no more of the drug available to us. I could not believe it. He told me that I would be fine, and I would be able to keep my powers. But, I was not all right. The withdrawals were unbearable. I thought I was going insane. Then, one night, one of my clan brothers brought me dinner, and before I knew what was happening, I opened my mouth and these fangs shot out and punched holes into his neck. In a few moments, I had sucked all the blood out of his body. I was horrified. I felt as though I was looking at someone else doing this horrible thing. Then the pain stopped. I ran away, trying to hide from myself, but I couldn't. It became a terrible hunger, and there was only one way to satisfy it. You know the rest. He closed his eyes again as the tears rolled down his face, and onto the pillow. Dora removed the stone from her neck. She held it in her hand, as she walked to the bed. "Don't be afraid, Red. Let me see them." Red Claw grabbed hold of the bed linings to help steady himself. Then he slowly opened his mouth, and out came the two long fangs. Dora opened her hand and the stone rose up in the air as she spoke the words. A wide band of blue light swept over Red Claw. He let out a howling scream as the creature dissolved from within him. Then, an evil spirit rose up out of his body, howling and hissing at Dora, but she was not afraid. She stood her ground and watched as it faded into nothing. The band of light stopped, and the stone returned to Dora's hands. Red Claw's nightmare was over. His face was radiant, as he lay unconscious on the bed. Dora sat on the edge of the bed and gently stroked his head. "It's over now, my love. You will know peace again now." She kissed him gently as he slept, then she replaced the stone around her neck and left the temple. The hours seemed like days to Leo Van Hart. He sat on a log lying by the side of the communications van. He was tired. As a matter of fact, he was sick and tired. He glared at Paul sitting with his legs crossed and his eyes closed, trying to get a feel for where Red Claw and Dora may be hiding. Suddenly, Jerry poked his head out of the van. He seemed a bit excited. "Sir, it's the Regent," he exclaimed in a low voice while waving his hand at Leo, who rose slowly from the log as though giving himself some time to think of what to say. He got into the van as Jerry exited it to give him some privacy. The Regent was waiting patiently for him. "Hello, sir." "Leo. I'm sorry about the loss of your men. It would seem that this assignment was a bit over your head. We knew it would be difficult, but we thought you could handle it." "I'm sorry, sir. I don't know what to say except that I know that Red Claw is here and I won't stop until I destroy him." "That is exactly why I'm calling you, Leo. It's no longer necessary to do that. You see, your wife, Dora, has transformed Red Claw back to normal. He is no longer a Kanka vampire. We thank you for your efforts. Please, return to your home at once, and await new orders." Leo was shocked. He could not believe his ears. "But sir, I lost 4 men out here. Are you telling me that I must simply walk away now, because Red Claw is cured? What about all the people he killed? What about my men who died here? As I have said before, I am sorry about the loss of your men, but your orders are to return to home base. I will talk with you when you get there. Goodbye." The Regent was firm and in moments, he was off the screen. Leo was pissed. He was so angry, he could hardly contain himself as he stepped out of the van, slamming the door behind him. He said nothing to the men who were now waiting for him to give them new orders. Instead, he took out a cigar and puffed on it for about 3 minutes in silence. When he had gathered his thoughts, he gave the order to leave the forest. Dora rose early. She had important calls to make. Her first call is to Patricia and Tom Hyde of Tobago. Dora made arrangements for Red Claw to begin his new life there. He would have to change his name and his appearance. Dora has a friend named Jim Watley, who owns a fishing boat. She called in a few favors and Jim agreed to take Red Claw to Tobago. He also would give him a job on the boat. Dora went to the store and bought hair oil and clothes. She took them to Red Claw. She helped him to complete his transformation. When she was done, Red Claw looked like a totally different man. She then drove him to the docks to meet Jim Watley on his boat. Red Claw kissed Dora goodbye and she watched as his boat sailed off into the sunset.